You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Another edition of Life Advice. We get a couple here that I really like. So let's start with this one. It's a little international. And it's asked, the question is simple: worst date, how to end it early. Hey guys, hope you're well. 6'3", 198 pounds. I love playing ball. Currently playing semi-pro ball in Holland. I'm Greek. You know, my rule with the semi-pro thing is some of you actually are playing semi-professional basketball. And I've met a lot of guys that said they did. And I'm like, do you play in just sort of like a men's league with uniforms and stuff? Or, because I've had a few people really gray the area around semi-pro and what it really means. But if you're Greek and you're living in Holland, I'm going to say you're legit. And if you're listening to this podcast, it means you probably really like basketball. So you check out on this one. But I'm just, for our female listeners, if you meet a guy that plays semi-pro and is, maybe get a summer tryout with somebody, follow up with him 6 months later and ask how that NBA Summer League went that he didn't get invited to. But not our guy. We're gonna back him here. All right, 6'3", we said 198. Last Friday, worst date of my life. My question is, at which point in the date would you tell the girl she needs to leave? I met this girl about a week ago. I didn't like her, but she DM'd me a couple times, and even though I was not attracted to her, I had no plans on Friday, so I invited her to my place to watch Netflix and have a drink. Well, you already it's your fault, first of all. You didn't like her. You had nothing to do, so you couldn't be by yourself for a night. Sounds like a young athlete, if you ask me. But anyway, you give it a shot. So from the get-go, the date was bad. I'd listen to her mundane stories, and every time I tried to say something, she'd interrupt and make fun of me. At some point, I'm like, fuck it. And I go for it. Okay. So obviously she's attractive, and you're just being a guy and saying, hey, Friday night, I have nothing else to do. She stops me, right, from kissing. She says it doesn't like kissing because it makes her uncomfortable, and she's not going to sleep with me. Okay. All right. To be honest, I couldn't care less. You really like her, man. I can't believe she turned you down. But then she proceeds to climb over me and cuddles me. At that point, I'm thinking this is getting weird. Look, respect to her. She didn't want to go there. She just met you. She shows up at your house. You give it a shot. It doesn't work out. You hang, and now you're cuddling. I think this is part of, like, she obviously likes you to some degree to come over to their house, but, she just wants to make sure it's not just about that. So that's where the cuddling, that's my translation on this deal so far. So then as they're cuddling, starts acting tired and start ignoring her, and she tells me I need to go to bed. I nod and proceed to get ready for bed. While I'm doing that, she asks me if I have comfortable clothes for her to sleep in. I really wanted to tell her to leave, but it was midnight. So I let it go. We went to sleep. She wakes up at 6 a.m. complaining that it's cold, which kind of pisses me off. Eventually, I wake up at 9. So she woke up at 6. You stayed in bed another 3 hours. He says he goes to wash the glasses from last night. I tried to be as loud as I could so that she wakes up. I go to my room where she's chilling, and I tell her I need to go because I'm going to go grab breakfast with a friend. Instead of leaving, she finds a comfortable spot on my couch and chills there for 30 minutes. Side note, basketball related, I remember once in my early 20s, in the middle of the week, told somebody I had a men's league game. And she was like, on a Tuesday morning? I was like, yeah, it's pretty intense. I did not have a men's league game. So I go to my room where she's chilling, and I tell her I need to go because I'm going to grab breakfast with a friend. Instead of leaving, she finds a comfortable spot on my couch and chills there for 30 minutes. I tell her I have to go. She ignores me and asks if I have any cereal. I am very patient in general, but she's really pissing me off to the point that I text my friend to call me that I'm late for breakfast so that she leaves. She doesn't bat an eye, so I actually tell her she needs to go. She says, I'll leave in 10. So she's calling the shot. She's taking over your house. I go take a shower, ask if we leave together. We get outside. I ask her which way she goes, and she says that way, and I say I'm going the other way. The date was just terrible, and I feel like shit because she made me feel very uncomfortable. I would have also liked to have been more authoritative, telling her that she could not stay over. At which point would you guys have ended the date? Have you ever been in a similar position? Look, there's a lot of guilt, I think, all over the place here. I mean, you're being honest with yourself, man. You invited her over. You probably thought it was not going to go this way. And then when it didn't, it sounds like you're okay. You're like, fine. So it didn't work out for you, but like, you have to understand that that's on you. You invited this person who you don't even know over to your house, and then she wanted to sleep over because she obviously liked you enough to want to sleep over in the first place. And there were probably a series of tests that she was putting you through to just see if you were nice and whatever. And if you could make it through this next night, then maybe else something would happen. But that's never going to happen because you never liked her in the first place and you like her even less now. And I don't know how she feels about you. She hasn't emailed the show, obviously. I don't think there was a comfortable moment, though, to be like, hey, get out of my house. I just don't think there was. Because if it's not going to go the way you want it to go, and then you're like, get out of my house, you're an even bigger dick. And I think you just look at this as a bad night. You got to know her even more. You like her even less. You're never going to see her again. And there you go. That's it. Lesson learned. Done. But if you do end up on another bored night a couple weeks from now, maybe with a couple Belgium microbrews in you, and say, hey, come on over, and it goes just as bad again, now you have absolutely no one to blame but yourself. But the next morning, hey, do you have cereal? Hey, I'm not going to leave. All that kind of stuff. People are different that way. But it does seem like she kind of wanted to test you and see how accommodating you would be with different scenarios. And you kind of passed in a weird way. So she's probably going to hit you up again. But it's 100% your fault if you ever meet up with her again. But it was also really on you that she was there in the first place when you had really no intentions of wanting to spend more time with her than that night. So I think you got to look at it that way. You got to take some ownership of this. It's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to see this person again. So don't do it again. Kyle?
I agree. Like, I think once it gets to a certain hour too, he said he invited over to watch Netflix. It's like, oh yeah, big fucking secret there, but it's probably already 9:00 or something. And it sounds like when on the exit route that they were like, oh, which way are you going? Which means that there's probably like a walking situation, which means it's probably a city. So if you're thinking about booting her out at 12:30 in some sort of city, like that's probably uncool. So I think you just got to sort of gauge like what time is it, where it's going, if you're not sure what the sleeping plans are. But you should have been thinking about that before it became too late to boot somebody out in the wee hours of the night, I think. I mean, I know people that do it and they don't care, but I can't be that person. It sounds like you can't either. So good on you.
No, so some guys, I mean, it's just unbelievable how quickly they can just be like, all right, there's no sleepover. Like, you're out of here. That's a rare trait to be able to pull off. It just is.
It sounds like this guy's, he's kind of a dick, but he's also too nice in a way. Either commit to one or the other. Either be a dick or be super nice. And you were kind of towing the line the entire night, and then next morning, if you want her to leave, tell her to leave. But you were kind of trying to I guess move her along in the direction that you wanted to go into. You either have to be a dick or be nice, and you can't sit on the fence on this one.
Great observation, Cerruti, because I mean, it is tough to cuddle and then also do a late breakfast the next day with somebody that you couldn't stand prior to any of that anyway. So,
And honestly, at that point, I think you have a right to be a dick too. I don't know. What do we do? Let's move this thing along, especially if it's 9 a.m. and you got stuff to do.
Yeah, in the morning he could have done the hard 6 o'clock wake up. I think
it sounds like he tried to, but some people like to sleep in. I mean, that's always a weird deal. I'll never forget. I mean, again, this is a long, long time ago. I think we're still talking the 90s. And my roommate was talking to somebody and they, ended up meeting up and she spent the night. And we almost finished our day before she finally left. Like she just lounged in his bedroom and slept. She slept till 1 or 2. We left, we worked out, ran errands, shopped, starting to make dinner plans. Hey, what are we doing tonight? And then I was like, what? Is she still here? But what you have to be kidding me. And then it was hey, it's already tomorrow night. Is there anything we need to call anybody? Was
she what are we doing? Yeah, let's get after it.
yeah. You guys
get a quick
fun.
shower and
I'm just gonna hang here. All right. I think we got that one from all angles. I don't expect that guy's gonna be super popular with some of the feedback here, but at least he was honest. So let's allow that to at least be part of it. Okay. Okay, here we go. Checking in from Winnipeg, 6 feet, 195. Oh, he's giving us some pre and post bench stats. 275 now after the lockdown, 225. That's all right. You'll get it back fairly quickly. 275 is great for 195. If you can figure out that back pinch thing that guys are doing, less range of motion, get a few more reps out that way. I was messing with it this morning. I think it's too late for me. I can't really get it down, but I was watching some guy do this video. Like he's basically showing you, here are the different ways you can have a much higher max bench. And it wasn't like cheating because it's legit, but it's sort of like cheating because it makes it easier. And then some of you guys that are doing this rainbow deal with your chest and your waist, and like the rep comes down 4 inches, and then you rack it and post it on Instagram. And you're like, all right, dude, come on. It's like dunking on a 9-foot hoop. Being like sick. All right, here we go. Love the show. Been with my girlfriend 4 years. Lived together. Have a dog. A COVID puppy. Rescued him from his shelter. Couple heroes right here. Our relationship is good. We still vibe and everything. All right, 4 years, still on the vibes. Terrific. But the things that drive me crazy are that she spends beyond her means. I currently work in tech and I'm working from home, so she constantly gets packages delivered to the house. Now, I don't mind her spending her own money, but she's racked up a couple $1,000s in credit card debt. We talk about saving for a house. Yet packages from Nordstrom and other places at all the department stores show up to the apartment at least once every 2 weeks. Once every 2 weeks actually doesn't sound terrible compared to other situations that I've seen, but I get it. Like whatever your means are your means, and she's racking up a couple $1,000s in credit card bills and she's not paying it down every month and is carrying it over, then that's a problem. Kyle, there's a touchy subject weeks ago on the podcast, so I don't want to bring that up again. I'm getting to the point where it's starting to bother me, but I don't know how to address the issue. Any help would be appreciated. Love the show. All right, so here's the deal. If there's one thing that I've learned, and if you look at how certain things happen with retail, and it was something that I wish I had just, there were certain financial bets that I wanted to make during the initial COVID part of this, where you're like, okay, what stocks are going to soar? What's going to take off and whatever? And then, when the market was down 30%, some people were just active and made money on that way. But the Amazon thing, now in retrospect that we saw what happened the last year plus, it made all the sense in the world, because even though there was a concern long term what was happening economically, the stimulus check thing, depending on what you qualified or not, like I don't know that went into the piggy bank for a lot of people. I think it was looked at as like this discretionary income, where if you looked at a lot of not just the luxury items, but the secondary shoe market, we've touched on some of this stuff before, but there was all this, people were just buying a ton of shit online, man. And part of it is boredom. Part of it is, hey, I'm actually, even though long-term, not sure what's going to happen to me financially, I'm getting some bumps here and then now in the short term. And I know that when I was younger and had no long-term plans financially, like you just kind of look at it as extra money. You don't look at it as stability, which was really the point of the whole thing. But I'm not judging, because I'm admitting, I think any of us that are being realistic about what happened with a lot of the money, it was just, hey, this is actually great. It's supposed to make me feel. So I don't want to turn this into some big fucking political thing about Russillo dumping on the stimulus checks. I'm just telling you what was a very obvious observation about what was going on with a lot of the different parts of this economy. All right. So when you look at like Amazon stock going crazy, you're like, oh, wait, they're on fire. Because, I mean, ask people that deliver stuff. Like anybody that's showing up and be like, how are you doing? Be like, never been busier. Right? All the delivery guys, never been busier. You start looking at companies that make cardboard boxes, like they're all on fire. Like people are looking like, how do I get into cardboard box manufacturing? Because now everybody's just ordering, because it's also therapeutic. And so, when people talk about retail therapy, like it's a real thing. And whether it's the actual endorphins of hitting check me out, after you put all the stuff in your cart, or the weird void that having a package can fill, which I know can sound insane, but I think it actually does apply to a lot of people. And it'll even happen with me at times where I'm like, oh, hey, I haven't bought anything in a while. I'm gonna order this thing that I've been thinking out or whatever. And then it's like, okay, cool, I have this thing. And then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna check the fucking tracking every day, like I'm actually doing something. And I'm not doing anything. The package is gonna show up when it shows up. And then when it shows up and you open it, you're like, all right, fine. And then most of the times you just kind of set it down. And you're like, all right, now I have this thing that I went ahead and bought. Like you have to be aware of these things and figure it out. But the reason I'm telling you this whole thing is that could be a big part of this. It could be one that she's a disaster financially. I don't know that. You don't know that. It could be that coming out of COVID, she developed this habit of filling some sort of void by ordering stuff all the time. And I don't know, obviously what Canada was doing, so stimulus wise, like, let's not even go there. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about it because I've read 0 articles about it the entire time. All right. So what you have to figure out at some point, because like, it's not great when your partner sucks with money, man. It's not. I was a partner that had no money when I was in my mid 20s and somebody wanted to marry me. And I'm thinking like, I don't have, like, I have times where I don't have $1,000 to my name. All right. And this person wants to marry me. I'm like, what a disaster she must be. Right. And that's kind of how I would look at it. I would have figured it out eventually, but I've had different scenarios. Like, look, I haven't lived with anybody. I'm not serious to the point of this where I have to start worrying about, can I save for a house with the other person? But all of this is a drag. All right. All of it is a drag. And some of my friends have ended up in marriages where I don't know how you address it, but it's not a great thing to let linger, because then it turns into some resentment. And even though you can say, hey, we're in this partnership and we're raising a family and we're doing this all together, I think human nature allows you in some moments being like, I'm the one making all the money and this other person's spending it on shit all the time, because most of the stuff doesn't mean anything. And as somebody who's had to pack and move up a lot over the last few years, there is nothing worse than taking inventory of all the shit that you've accumulated and been like, you know what? I didn't need almost all of this. I really didn't. And it was even funnier when I first moved to California, because all my shit was still in storage because the house wasn't ready. I lived out of 2 bags for 3 months and I didn't even notice it after a while. I didn't even notice it. Now, look, I don't want to be some minimalist and live out of 2 bags. I do like some of the stuff that I have, but like that's one of those things that whenever you're thinking about buying a house and the next purchase, and you actually start doing inventory of all the stuff that you've bought, you're so annoyed with yourself because you're like, you know what I didn't need is the white version of the orange hoodie that says positive vibes only. Like, I didn't need a white one also. So that was a bit more of a rant there. I probably didn't offer you much advice. I'm just trying to give you some root causes of why somebody would start ordering more and more stuff, because I think in COVID especially, look, there was retail therapy for years going on before that, but in COVID, it cranked it up for a lot of people. And now it kind of fills some sort of weird void of like this odd thing that you're doing. Like, oh, hey, I have this package coming in Friday, so we're going to make sure this, and this. And then when it opens up, you open it up, you put the shit away, and then you're like, all right. So there might be a nice way to talk about it if you plan on saving for a house together. But if you don't address it, maybe it was just COVID related and she grows out of it. Or maybe next thing you know, you're looking at credit card bills that really prevent you from qualifying for the kind of loan that you want, which is not what anybody would want out of a partner. Kyle?
Hey, that was great. I could put that in the open if you want me to. I can just stitch it in the front of the podcast. Quick 10-minute open. 2.
What about it was so long?
Yeah. That was great open. 2 is the credit card hers or theirs, or it doesn't matter once they get married because it's like all merged anyway? Because if he can't even see what she's racking up, and he just kind of catch a glimpse at 2,000, he catches another glimpse at 3,800, and he's like, holy shit, now it's been 3 weeks since then. I can see how that would make you sick to your stomach, but you should be able to talk to her about stuff like this, especially if you broach it as like a team thing. I don't know. I think girlfriends always like the prospect of like building stuff and doing stuff. So, I mean, you might be able to approach it in like a fun way and then be like, so where are we at with our debts? I don't know.
Why are you buying shit from Nordstrom all the time?
No, not like that, but like, you talk about
fun exercise. You want to stop buying shit?
No, but like you're talking about like, things in the future and what you need to do and maybe like talk about some bullshit you need to handle and be like, so how are we doing like with your credit cards? I'm down to like $800. Like, where are we at? Just take an inventory here. They could be like, oh, wow. I don't know.
No,
it is uncomfortable.
I think you're right, Kyle. I think you're right, because I think you got to say, hey, make this about you as a couple moving forward, saying,
there you
hey,
go.
we want this house. Like, I just want to make sure we're in a position where we can be strong together as we move forward as a unit. But here's my question, because I'm confused on this. They're not married. Are they married? Are they dating?
4 years.
Are they engaged?
Girlfriend 4 years.
So,
and then he says, I work in tech and working from home. She consistently gets packaged. He doesn't say anything about her working.
Okay.
He goes, I don't mind her spending her own money, but she's racked up a couple. All right. So
I think I know the answer here. I mean, it sounds like she is just waiting until you guys get engaged and are married and you can have one bank account. And she's really not worried about what her credit card looks like right now. That's what I would say. And honestly, if you guys are heading that direction anyway, it's probably fine. It's still worth a conversation worth having. But I would imagine if engagement and marriage is on the horizon, she's okay having a couple $1,000s of credit card debt on there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, she could be. I mean, that's something else you'll do when you're not always great with me. Like, sometimes you'll pre-spend what you think you have coming in, which, again, I remember being like that. Like, I remember going like, oh, I have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday shift this weekend when I have a double. I was like, oh, I'll make like, whatever. And then you're just like, all right, cool. That's like free money. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible way to think of money. But again, the reason I understand some of these things is I've made all of these mistakes. If I had clear sailing from 18 years old, when you get that first Amex with a $500 credit limit at college, and then you get this plane ticket, which is hilarious because you're like, well, whatever, it makes sense. I have a free round trip ticket. It's like, dude, you can't afford anything once you would land. So I never used a voucher on anything anyway, because I couldn't afford to go anywhere. And then, of course, I immediately racked it up. And then guess what Amex did? Didn't send the bill to the dorm room. So I was like, oh, that worked out great. You're like, no, it doesn't work out great. They find you. And, that's kind of dumb shit that I learned because I was the oldest and I didn't know. I didn't know any better. I probably should have known better, but I didn't. And that's why I think, So this advice was more about, like I said, trying to understand maybe why she's doing some of this stuff. And maybe it's a part-time learned behavior and coming out of everybody reacting to what we all went through in the world in a very, very different way. But, I think Kyle made a really good point. Like, address it as this partnership moving forward, marriage, house. Like, let's go over our that's actually the backdoor way of doing it. Don't start with this. Get to it at the end. Be like, hey, look, I want to start Zillow porning it up. We're probably a couple years away. Let's make sure when we're ready to make the decision in a couple of years, down payment, what we qualify for, what kind of rate we're going to get, what our full approval is. Let's get all of our finances in order now and start talking ourselves through it. And then magically, guess what's going to come up? The credit card bill. Don't be an asshole about it. Be like, okay, look, we need to clean this up, right? Are we in agreement? And when she says, yeah, we're in agreement, then maybe the problem is solved. And then if a bunch of shit from Nordstrom starts showing up again and you're like, is there a third season scarf that you really needed? Now you realize you have a bigger problem and you're going to have to address it a bit more sternly or break up and take the puppy.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. You guys can get through this. You're from Canada. I believe in you. All right, that's life advice. Make sure you subscribe and listen to every episode of the Ryen Russillo podcast here as part of Ringer and Spotify.